Between the whirlwind successes of My Hero Academia and One Punch Man, the anime community seems to be as enamored with superheroes as the rest of the world. But with the former's third season not starting until next spring, and the second season of the latter having no definitive broadcast date yet, we superhero otaku have a long wait ahead of us before we can return to the incredible worlds of these shows. And with One Punch Man in the hands of a new studio and an untested director, we can't even be sure that its world will be the same as we last left it. Fortunately, a lot of other superhero anime have flown under the radar over the years, so we have plenty of other shows to watch while we wait for Deku and Saitama to return. Here are 5 probably new to you superhero series that I promise are more than capable of saving you from your boredom. A big part of the appeal of One Punch Man is the humorous contrast between Saitama's earth-shattering physical power and his schlubby lower-class lifestyle. At its core, the show isn't so much about the superhuman feats as it is the all-too-human daily struggle against boredom and depression. That's what makes it funny and what makes it meaningful. Astro Fighter Sunred exists on a similar wavelength. Its titular hero's uniform consists of shorts and graphic t-shirts, not to mention his mask, which he never takes off somehow, and its plot tends to revolve around the mundane day-to-day lives of the superpowered beings who live in Kawasaki City. But where One Punch Man is a send-up of American superheroes and shonen anime tropes that reimagine superhero agencies as government bureaucracies, Sunred is a love letter to henshin heroes like Kamen Rider and Sentai Rangers, and its strongest concept is reframing evil organizations as small go-getting Japanese startups. And as a piece of satire, that just works. Henshin series tend to work on a Monster of the Week format, where in each episode a new bizarre creature shows up, challenges the hero to a duel, and subsequently gets their ass beat. That the hero will win is pretty much a foregone conclusion, and in Sunred this has been going on for a long time now. Long enough that Sunred has just stopped trying and, according to the OP, pawned his superhero motorcycle and uniform, though the evil organization Florsheim still gives every hopeless evil plan their all. The show's quote-unquote epic battles between good and evil have devolved into more or less one-sided beatings that Sunred delivers with his super strength whenever the villains interrupt his daily life, and their venue has moved from the typical nondescript quarry at the edge of town to a small park near Sunred's house for convenience sake. When they're not going through the motions of villainy, Florsheim alternates between being a mild nuisance to the hero, helping him and his girlfriend Kyoko around the house, and trying to hold down their day jobs, because even though they're trying to take over the world, that doesn't mean they can't contribute to it, and they're all just really nice guys, you know? The kind of guys who make sure that the children they kidnap get to tutoring on time. The atmosphere around Florsheim headquarters fits somewhere between a Japanese small business and a big quirky family, and it's endearing to watch the cadre of monsters led by the polite and soft-spoken General Vamp as they both try to take over the world and learn proper fridge sharing etiquette. Sunred, meanwhile, well, his demeanor is not exactly what you'd call superheroic. He can be a little on the rude and surly side. He's a bit of a freeloader since his only real skill is crime fighting, and he tends to push the Florsheim guys around more than is necessary, but deep down, he's also a pretty decent guy who cares about his girlfriend and mostly just wants to be left alone by everyone else. Astro Fighter Sunred is a gag series without much in the way of plot, so it's not quite as deep as One Punch Man, but it's easily just as funny, and it's got a surprising amount of heart behind it. If you enjoy One Punch Man or shows like Tonari no Seki-kun, Senyu, and Cromartie High School, you'll probably enjoy Astro Fighter Sunred a great deal. Now for the Hiroaka fans out there, that show's core concept of a world where a segment of the populace begins randomly developing superpowers is a huge part of its appeal as well. Our second recommendation, Tiger and Bunny, starts with a similar premise but takes it in a very different direction, imagining a world where superheroes become brand-sponsored reality TV stars competing to bust supervillains for fame and glory, which, if I may speak for a moment not as an anime fan but as the king of shills, is goddamn brilliant. Sunrise found a way to get real companies like SoftBank, Bandai, Ustream, Calbee, and freaking Pepsi to bankroll their TV production with shameless ad inserts that are part of the plot and add to the consistency of the show's universe. Genius. The show bears some similarities, both superficial and not, to Hiroaka beyond that. Like Midoriya, Tiger and Bunny's hero Kotetsu, aka Wild Tiger, is an idealist who believes in the traditional superhero model and who pursued a career in heroism to be more like his own idol, Mr. Legend. His 100 power greatly enhances his physical strength and abilities in short bursts, not unlike One for All, and like Deku, he dresses primarily in green. Unlike Deku, however, Kotetsu is not an up-and-comer. He's a has-been. An aging father whose best heroing years are behind him, he must now deal with the rise of Barnaby Brooks Jr., a handsome, red-clad hero who has attained immense popularity by abandoning the secret identity shtick altogether, and who has the exact same superpower as he does. They even manage to accentuate the disparity between them with their sponsorships. Barnaby is sponsored by Bandai, while the less popular Kotetsu is sponsored by Bandai's subsidiary, SH Figuarts. That's brilliant writing. Their agent decides that the best way they can compete on Hero TV is to team up, which means that they butt heads constantly. Kotetsu and Barnaby are a superpowered odd couple who gradually learn to work together over the course of the series, and their blossoming friendship is quite heartwarming, as is seeing Kotetsu struggle to balance being a superhero with being a dad. Even outside that emotional core, the show has a lot of heart. The other heroes get plenty of development in their own right, and every viewer will find at least one hero to root for out of the large, likable cast. And you'll find some delightfully hateable villains to root against as well. Once the plot kicks in, things get intense pretty quickly. As you'd probably expect from the premise, Tiger and Bunny is peppered with great, exciting action scenes which are given a strong sense of immediacy thanks to the frequent cuts away to TV footage. Putting that great gimmick aside though, the fights in this show are very well choreographed, which is no surprise considering that director Keiichi Sato also directed the Rage of Bahamut anime. Tiger and Bunny is considered to be an all-time classic by many hardcore otaku, but just looking at its MAL numbers, it seems to have been largely overlooked by the new generation of weebs. The series was just added to Netflix, so you can watch it there, but all of the product placement has been removed from that version, which kinda takes away from the show and makes its OP look straight up dumb. Instead, I'd recommend watching it on Viz.com so you can enjoy all those thematically relevant ads, and no other ads despite the fact that the series is free in 1080p on the service. But maybe it's not the super heroics of Hiroaka and One Punch Man that appeal to you so much as the heroic spirit behind them. If that's the case, you might enjoy Samurai Flamenco, the story of a handsome C-list TV actor named Masayoshi Hazama who dresses up in a homemade Sentai suit every night to stop people from committing misdemeanors. Sam Flam is basically a slightly more optimistic take on the realistic hero premise of Mark Miller's Kick-Ass, a story about a regular dude doing everything he can to stop crime, even if he can't actually do much of anything. At the start of the story, Masayoshi is so inept that he gets his ass kicked by a group of children for telling them to go home after curfew. But as things progress, he gradually becomes better at the whole superhero gig, helped by his best friend Goto, a local beat cop, and Jun Harazuka, an inventor at a stationery company who makes weapons disguised as staplers and other office supplies for him. Not only does Masayoshi stop criminals on his own, he also inspires other vigilantes along the way. 3M, an idol group led by the vicious tsundere Marimaya, starts dressing up as magical girls and going after criminals with a vengeance, armed with electrified maces and other decidedly brutal weaponry. The series is full of exciting twists and turns, and if what I've said so far piques your interest, then I highly recommend giving it a watch and skipping to the time code on screen right now to avoid spoilers. But if you still need a bit more convincing, let me briefly tell you about the moment that cemented this show as one of my all-time favorites. After 7 episodes of dealing with the media and police hounding him for his secret identity, Masayoshi is finally starting to make a real difference in the city. He and the Flamenco girls have managed to make the city a safer place despite their initial struggles, and the police force has even started using him as part of their PR campaign. But then, on a seemingly routine raid of a drug den, everything changes. That's not hyperbole. The show makes an almost unmatched quantum leap in setting and genre as, while the SWAT team begins arresting drug dealers, one of them transforms into a giant motherfucking gorilla with a guillotine in his stomach and starts murdering everyone. All of a sudden, the show has transformed from realistic parody to straight-up Monster of the Week superhero shenanigans, as everyone involved struggles to deal with the fact that monsters are suddenly a real thing and an evil organization has been plotting the downfall of humanity in secret for eons. The first 7 episodes are revealed to not be the core plot of the series, but an extended origin story for a real superhero. And that's just the first of many plot twists that absolutely turn this series on its head. You get the impression that every crazy suggestion in the show's writer's room was met with a response of, "Fuck it, let's make it happen," and the end result is one of the most insane and unpredictable anime ever made. Some might argue argue that it's a little too unpredictable. The show doesn't exactly follow a conventional narrative structure, and through its multiple shifts in genre and tone, it might lose a good chunk of viewers who were enjoying it for what it used to be, but in my opinion, it's worth sticking with it just to see how crazy it gets. That said, nothing that Sam Flam attempts would work without a strong cast of characters to back it up, and luckily, the show more than has that covered. In particular, the friendship that grows between Masayoshi and Goto over the course of the series is a strong driving force, and anyone who enjoys the dynamics of Saitama and Genos, or Barnaby and Kotetsu, will find something to love there. Samurai Flamenco is available to stream on Crunchyroll, and you can watch it for free if you sign up for a 14-day free trial using crunchyroll.com/basement. That trial will also let you watch the next 2 shows on this list as well, in case you're interested in those. On the polar opposite end of the spectrum from Samurai Flamenco, if you're looking for a show about an absurdly overpowered super villain to sink your teeth into, courtesy of Zettai Karen Children, the unlimited Hyobu Kyosuke may be just the thing for you, if you can even fit that title into your mouth, that is. As the name suggests, the Unlimited is a spin-off of Zettai Karen Children, a pretty fantastic entry in the Esper subgenre of shonen battle anime. In the original series, a group of 3 teenage espers working for an organization called Babel used their powers to save the world from psychic threats, including attacks by an esper supremacist terrorist organization called Pandra, because apparently neither the writer nor editor of the original manga could be bothered to spell-check the word Pandora before publishing it. Pandra is led by Hyobu Kyosuke, a charismatic World War II survivor with immense psionic powers and white hair who, look, he's Magneto in a high school uniform, alright? Pandra is the Brotherhood of Mutants, Babel is the X-Men, and the whole world is deeply prejudiced against espers as part of a very thinly veiled bit of social commentary. It's not exactly X-Men, and it's actually a little bit the tale of Genji, but it's basically X-Men. And there's already a pretty fantastic X-Men anime, so why am I recommending this spin-off of a knockoff? Well, that's because in all of its iterations across film and television, we've never really had an X-Men show or movie that focuses on Magneto as he leads the Brotherhood of Mutants, or entertains the idea that he might actually be at least partly in the right. If you've ever empathized with Magneto or wanted to see something like that in general, then the Unlimited Hyobu Kyosuke is exactly what you're looking for. And even if you can't quite get behind the idea of rooting for a terrorist doing terrible things for what he believes are good reasons, don't worry, it also gives you a less morally ambiguous protagonist to cheer for in Andy Hinomiya, a spy who infiltrates Pandra in the first episode. As the main perspective character in the show, Andy plays an important role as audience surrogate, entertaining the validity of Kyosuke's ideals without necessarily accepting them. As he gets to know the members of Pandra and participates in missions with the group, his morals become increasingly conflicted, and the question of who he'll ultimately side with in the war between man and Esper gives you a compelling reason to keep watching. Being a rare seinen spin-off of a shonen property, the Unlimited Hyobu Kyosuke is a more nuanced and mature take than your average superhero story. But that doesn't mean that it skimps on the fun action scenes. The late, great Monglobe, also responsible for both Samurai's Flamenco and Champloo, went whole hog on each and every fight scene, doing everything they could to sell Hyobu's earth-shaking powers and everyone else's incredible abilities. The show does hit on one of my biggest pet peeves for shonen tropes. At first, it seems like Andy Hinomiya has no psychic powers, but actually it turns out that he can negate anyone else's powers, which as a concept is both totally played out and kind of inherently boring. Superpower anime are at their most fun when the heroes have to think around their opponent's abilities rather than simply negating them and winning through physical force, but the series doesn't lean on that crutch too much, and thankfully it still manages to have some pretty creative fights. And to be fair, the ability to negate powers does pair well with the stupidly overpowered Hyobu Kyosuke, who pulls off some insane feats of psychic ability over the series run. Honestly, even if the story weren't as good as it is, I'd be tempted to recommend watching this just to see some of the insane things that he does in it. And on that note, if sheer insanity is what you're after, then our last recommendation of the day, Punchline, fits the bill better than just about any anime I can think of. At first glance, its plot seems like a total non sequitur. After being saved from a busjacking by a juicebox-themed superheroine named Strange Juice, a young man man named Yuta discovers that he has superpowers that awaken when he sees panties. After escaping the bus, he sees Strange Juice's panties again and passes out, waking up to find that he's now a ghost and that another spirit has possessed his body. With the help of a ghost cat named Shiranosuke, Yuta must untangle a complicated chain of events involving all of his neighbors, all of whom happen to be hot girls, in order to find an ancient Indian spiritual book hidden somewhere in his apartment complex and get his body back. Oh, also he's trapped in a time loop where if he sees panties twice, a meteor will come and wipe out all of humanity, so that's also something he has to deal with. That might sound pretty crazy, but what's really crazy is that by the time you reach the end of the show, all of that makes perfect sense. And the show that seems like a lol random action comedy at first blush reveals itself to be one of the most tightly plotted narratives in all of anime. Which makes perfect sense as well if you look at the man who wrote it. Kotaro Uchikoshi is a visual novel scenario writer who has a stronger grasp on continuity than just about anyone else working in the medium. His Zero Escape trilogy fuses visual novel storytelling with room escape adventure game mechanics, but each game is also a massive puzzle in itself, where an intimate understanding of the whole plot's chain of cause and effect is required to reach the true ending. Even the most seemingly random differences between routes in these games are a direct result of your choices, which is pretty damn incredible and pretty rare for visual novels. Seriously, you need to play these games if you haven't already. With its time-looping plot, confined setting, and a cast comprised mostly of hot girls, Punchline feels a bit like a visual novel, at least at first. It even has a character leveling system and fully 3D environments. But Uchikoshi is aware that he's working in a different medium, and as the story unfolds across multiple time loops, it takes some twists and turns that are only really possible in anime. Plus, the show has its share of superpowered brawls, all of which are spectacularly animated and choreographed in a goofy style reminiscent of Gainax, which we ought to expect from the studio that made Inuyashiki and Rage of Bahamut, not to mention the director of Yojo Senki. If you're looking strictly for a superhero story, Punchline probably won't be quite focused enough to satiate you, but if you're in the mood for a mind and genre-bending story, which may or may not bend a few other things as well, that just happens to have superhero elements mixed in, you'll find few anime that are more daring and original than Punchline. It almost feels like a show from Gainax at their peak, except that the ending is actually good. That said, it's not a show for everyone. Punchline is one of those capital A anime that embraces all of the things that make Japanese animation capital W weird. And if you can't enjoy heavy fan service and bizarre gag scenarios, you're probably gonna have a bad time with it. But if strange experimental shows like FLCL and Excel Saga are your jam, then you're gonna wanna spread Punchline all over your toast. I don't know, that made sense in my head. If any of these shows have caught your eye, I'll remind you one last time that Punchline, The Unlimited Hyobu Kyosuke, and Samurai Flamenco are all available on Crunchyroll, and you can watch them by signing up for a 14-day free trial at crunchyroll.com/basement. You can also watch Tiger and Bunny totally free in HD on Viz.com, or watch the dub on Netflix if that's more your thing. Astro Fighter Sunred is unfortunately not licensed in North America, but I'll let you guys know if a legal option for watching it ever becomes available. Also, before you go, I've got one more bonus suggestion courtesy of my patron, Kenny Varnes. Tekkaman Blade, a very 90s spacefaring Tatsunoko anime known as Techno Man in its American dub. I haven't seen enough of the show to give it a full recommendation just yet, but I'm gonna be discussing it on the Weebcast in a few weeks, so give it a watch before then if you want to join that discussion. Speaking of the Weebcast, let me know in the comments below which of these 5 series you'd most like to see me discuss on there, or let me know who your favorite anime superhero of all time is, and while you're down there, I sure would appreciate it if you'd hit subscribe, ring the notification bell, and support me at patreon.com/basement if you really love what I do, like these beautiful human beings. If you want to hear me talk in depth about One Punch Man, check out the fight scene analysis video over here, or if you're in a Hiroaka mood, click here for an analysis of the Stain fight. And click down here to visit my collaborators on that video, Wisecrack, who have a ton of their own fantastic analytical content for you to digest. I'm Geoff Thew, Hero as a Hobby, signing out from my mother's basement.